Halloween, John Carpenter's landmark slasher movie from 1978, the first in a franchise of 13. In this video we will be diving straight into the deeper meaning and symbolism of the original movie, where it all began. The opening credits roll over a shot of a flickering jack-o'-lantern, accompanied by music from John Carpenter himself. It's a relentless, synthesizer-driven theme written in a 5/4 time signature. Most music has 4 beats in a bar. Carpenter unsettles us with 5. Prologue. It's 1963, Halloween night. We're in the suburbs of Haddonfield, Illinois. This is the origin story for the villain of the franchise, Michael Myers. At this point, he's a 6-year-old boy. His teenage sister Judith seems to have abdicated her responsibility to look after him in order to have sex while the parents are out. With chilling resolve, the young Michael dons a clown mask to complete his costume, grabs a kitchen knife, and stabs her to death. Already the two themes are established and inextricably linked: sex and death. What's more, the prologue is shot point of view, so we see Michael's first kill through his own eyes. It's deeply unsettling for the audience to be put in the shoes of the killer. He's just a boy. Well, is he? Only when the parents get home does the narrative pivot to the third person, and there's Michael, still clutching the bloodied knife. Notice the lack of emotion, seemingly oblivious to the implications of the harm he has just inflicted. It's childlike, but in the most perverse way. Subsequently, Michael is housed in a sanatorium under the supervision of Dr. Samuel Loomis. The film picks up on the eve of Halloween, 1978, 15 years after Michael's first kill. Dr. Loomis and Nurse Marion Chambers are driving through a stormy night to collect Michael for a court hearing. Almost every horror movie begins with a journey like this. It represents the move into the unknown, the descent into darkness. And sure enough, Michael escapes the sanatorium and steals the car. Like a moth drawn to a flame, he drives straight back to Haddonfield. He's been planning this for a while. Michael approaches the return to his childhood town in a deeply ritualistic fashion. He gets into a new costume, killing a car mechanic for the coveralls. This is a man getting ready for work. The mask is Captain Kirk, made from a cast of William Shatner's face, painted white with the eyebrows removed. A pop cultural icon stripped of colour and emotion. It's statuesque because Michael is memorialising his work as it unfolds. Listen to Dr. Loomis describing his experience of trying to help Michael Myers.
I met him 15 years ago. I was told there was nothing left. No reason, no conscience, no understanding, and even the most rudimentary sense of life or death, of good or evil, right or wrong. I met this 6-year-old child with this blank, pale, emotionless face and the blackest eyes, the devil's eyes. I spent 8 years trying to reach him, and then another 7 trying to keep him locked up because I realized that what was living behind that boy's eyes was purely and simply evil.
Pale and emotionless, Loomis could be describing Michael's mask here, as well as his actual appearance. And that's the point. The two are synonymous. Dr. Loomis and the film are convinced that Michael's actions cannot be explained by any number of mental disorders. In fact, there's evidence to suggest that Michael is of a supernatural evil. He can appear and disappear with ease, with superhuman strength and stealth. He's seemingly impossible to kill. They call him the Boogeyman.
What's the Boogeyman?
As a matter of fact, it was.
Yet he's humanized just enough by his regular, heavy breathing. In the first act of the film, we find our protagonist, Laurie Strode, sitting in a lesson comparing the works of possibly made-up novelists, Samuels and Costain. Gazing out of the window, she's distracted by the figure of Michael Myers, standing ominously across the road. He has chosen her. But at this point, Laurie doesn't know that. She doesn't know who he is or why he's here. Thinking that Laurie is daydreaming in class, the teacher asks her a question to try and catch her out. But Laurie gives a perfect answer, displaying her intelligence.
Costain wrote that fate was somehow related only to religion, whereas Samuels felt that, well, fate was like a natural element, like earth, air, fire, and water.
Which of these two views of fate does John Carpenter himself prefer? Neither, it seems. In Halloween, he doesn't commit himself to a theological understanding of fate or a materialist one. But however it arises, fate or destiny is the bread and butter of the horror genre. Because if you make a horror movie, you allow a monster to enter into the world you've created. Michael Myers, the embodiment of evil and death, the agent of chaos, happens to serve that role in this universe. There's a profound sense in which Michael Myers is inevitable. The classroom scene has become something of a horror movie staple. It's the place where the protagonist is forced to contend with the existence of fate.
It was her fate and she embraced it.
Because he literally refuses to look at all the signs that are being literally handed to him the entire play.
They can accept it, or they can rail against it, but what they can't do is stop it. Dr. Samuel Loomis knows this. He acts as a prophet within the film. Listen to this.
I watched him for 15 years, staring at a wall, not seeing the wall, looking past the wall, looking at this night, inhumanly patient. Death has come to your little town, Sheriff.
Death has come. But he's not a mindless, indiscriminate killer. This is perhaps most evident in the display that he sets up for Laurie to stumble upon. An altar of sorts. The excavated tombstone of his sister Judith has been placed at the head of the bed, his first ever victim. And all around are the bodies of Laurie's friends. Instead of the candle that you might see at a memorial, there is a jack-o'-lantern. What is this preaching? Well, let's walk through the events leading up to this gruesome display. Laurie is the first teenage girl Michael encounters upon returning to Haddonfield, the first reminder of his sister Judith. So she is Michael's primary target, but he warms up by killing her friends. On this particular Halloween night, Laurie has been tasked with babysitting the young Tommy Doyle, and across the street her friend Annie Brackett is babysitting Lindsay Wallace. Annie drops Lindsay off with Laurie so that she can pick up her boyfriend Paul, and that's when Michael Myers shows up to strangle her to death. He goes in for the kill the moment a teenage girl abdicates responsibility for the child in her care in order to pursue sex, just like before. Linda and Bob show up at the house to find it empty. They have sex, and then Bob heads downstairs to get some beers, saying,
I'll be right back.
But of course, that's when he gets killed. Michael pins him to the wall with a kitchen knife. Remember, the kitchen knife was Michael's first weapon of choice. He then strangles Linda to death with the phone cord while she's calling Laurie. Over the phone, Laurie confuses the sound for something else. Again, in this film, sex and death are inextricably linked. A suspicious Laurie decides to check on the house, and that's when she stumbles upon Michael's display. I think this is Michael's way of saying that he's here to continue what he started. Placing Judith's tombstone on the bed conveys the fact that Michael killed her before she even reached the bed where she was to have a sexual encounter. And radiating out are the corpses of those who Michael perceives to have been following in Judith's footsteps. As Laurie surveys this grisly scene, Michael himself emerges to incorporate her into it. Her death is to be the pinnacle of his night's work, but Laurie isn't going down so easily. During the ensuing struggle, she manages to hinder Michael using several improvised weapons. She stabs him in the neck with a knitting needle, she stabs him in the eye with a coat hanger, and when Michael drops the kitchen knife, she uses that to stab him in the chest. 3 objects, all symbols of domesticity: handicraft, laundry, and cooking. These are objects that grown-ups use. Laurie is the young, responsible, virginal woman who, unlike her friends, survives to the end. She is the so-called final girl, a term coined by Carol J. Clover in her 1992 book Men, Women and Chainsaws, Gender in the Modern Horror Film. Clover studied slasher films from the 70s and 80s and observed that many contain a woman like Laurie. So why does she get to live in the story? Is her survival a reward for her moral virtue? Well, John Carpenter says this. It has been suggested that I was making some kind of moral statement. Believe me, I'm not. In Halloween, I viewed the characters as simply normal teenagers. The one girl who is the most sexually uptight just keeps stabbing the guy with a long knife. She's the most sexually frustrated. She's the one that killed him. Not because she's a virgin, but because all that repressed energy starts coming out. She uses all those phallic symbols on the guy. She and the killer have a certain link. Sexual repression. So according to Carpenter, Laurie's strength comes, at least in part, from repressed sexual energy. But regardless of what he's trying to say or trying not to say with the film, the one teenager who stands up to Michael Myers is the one who hasn't been racing to lose her virginity. Laurie is a character who shows maturity and restraint. She even exhibits a motherly protection towards the young Lindsay and Tommy. In a time of trial, she takes responsibility. And that is surely admirable. That's not to say that Laurie's friends deserve their grisly deaths. The film frames Michael Myers as pure evil, not a righteous judge. But note this, we have a quiet suburb, teenagers with raging hormones racing to lose their virginity, parents who are notably absent, suggesting a lack of familial connection, and from this swirling post-sexual revolution cocktail emerges a monster. Is that a coincidence? Maybe not. Mercifully, the young children are safe, but we don't get the sense that Michael would go for them anyway. Early in the film, we see him silently confronting Tommy's bully at school after the smashing of Tommy's pumpkin. It's as if he's empathizing with the young Tommy. He's not here to kill the young children. He's here to kill what he potentially sees as their wayward babysitters, just as he killed his own sister when he was a young boy. Speaking of pumpkins, the pumpkin serves as a bad omen in the film. The bad fruit that springs up when death arrives in Haddonfield. A fruit carved into a scary face by a kitchen knife, most likely, Michael's original weapon. The pumpkin is there in the poster, the opening titles, the perimeter of the young Michael's house, the school playground, the bedside table when Bob and Linda have sex, and it remains there for Michael's altar. It would be impossible to make a film called Halloween without jack-o'-lanterns. But where does this bizarre ritual of carving pumpkins come from? And what is the film invoking through their presence? Well, what's interesting about Halloween as a celebration is that its origins are actually quite hard to pin down. Was the 31st of October originally a pagan festival which was then appropriated by the church for All Hallows Day to commemorate the death of believers? Or did the Christian All Hallows Day actually develop independently? Academics disagree on that one. In any case, the celebration of Halloween in its current form in the US appears to be a bizarre amalgamation of traditions, including the carving of pumpkins. As an old Irish legend goes, a man called Stingy Jack performed a trick on the devil, and the devil promised not to claim his soul. Yet God rejected Jack from heaven. So Jack has been condemned to wander the earth to this day, with only a burning coal inside a hollowed-out turnip for light. The people of Ireland and Scotland began to make their own vegetable lamps with scary faces to ward off Stingy Jack and other spirits. If so, then that practice was quite heavily shaped by Christian theology. So the original jack-o'-lanterns were probably turnips. And it's been suggested that when these folks migrated to the United States, they began to utilize the native pumpkin fruits instead. Let's hear some more on the symbolism of Halloween from Jonathan Peugeot. I think this really helps with understanding what the Michael Myers mythos is tapping into.
Here we are, we're looking outside, we're seeing the days get darker and darker. We're noticing that the sun is going away. And so the question is that it? Is it going to end? Is the sun going to go forever? No, it's not. It's coming back. It's a ruse. It's a trick. All of this it's not an illusion, but it's a temporary thing. And ultimately, spring will return and the world will live again. And so there's something appropriate about laughing at death in that moment, to make fun of the power of death, because we know that it has lost its power a long time ago. And whatever power it has is the one we give to it ourselves. One of the things that something like Halloween can show you about someone can reveal a hidden side about that person. Imagine, for example, that you have a day where you're allowed to let loose a little bit, where you're allowed to go over the limit just a little. And so what it does is can actually show you something of the darkness that's inside you, because some people will go over the line way too much. It's a sad sign of our society that the only thing left of this Hallowtide is the monstrous part, whereas the prayer part, which is the way to get rid of the monsters, isn't there anymore.
The Michael Myers costume is a Trojan horse. Any other night of the year, he'd stick out like a sore thumb. But on Halloween night, he blends in. It's the one night that everyone dresses scary. That's why he made his first kill on October the 31st, and that's why he returns for his fresh killing spree on October the 31st. The darkness of Halloween is his domain. Halloween is seen as a landmark American movie, and maybe that's because it really touches a nerve for the modern American suburban context. Whilst the ghoulish imagery of Halloween itself remains fun and frivolous for most people, with all the trick-or-treating, there still exists at the fringes a genuine horror which needs to be reckoned with. The fact that Michael Myers cannot be explained away merely through modern biology or psychology allows for the prospect that evil is real. It exists. We no longer know what it is or what to do with it, but part of us still knows that it exists. And that's terrifying, especially in a comfortable, familiar, suburban context.
Doctor, do you know what Haddonfield is? Families, children, all lined up in rows up and down these streets. You're telling me they're lined up for a slaughterhouse?
They could be.
This is supposedly the American dream, but there's something bubbling beneath the surface. So there we go. Halloween. Welling up from the complex hormonal cocktail of rebellious teenagers comes a monster, evil incarnate. He stalks the land on Halloween night, slaying the teenagers who remind him of his older sister. After a confrontation with a virgin and a prophet called Samuel, he is cast out of the house, but he survives. The deliverance is not ultimate. He's still out there, breathing. That's the original film. Do let me know in the comments if you think I've missed something, which is undoubtedly the case. As for the remainder of the Halloween franchise, which stands at 12 films at the time of recording, well, that probably deserves another video at least. The core of the franchise is the face-off between Michael Myers and Laurie Strode. Apart from Halloween 3, which contains neither of those crucial characters, 2018's Halloween rebooted the franchise, treating the earlier sequels as Laurie's internalized post-traumatic stress, and serving as a direct sequel to the original. This spawned 2 further films in Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends, and it seems the enduring power of this franchise comes from the rich mythos of Michael Myers, and it's all there in that original landmark movie. Well, there we go. Halloween. My name's Thomas Thorogood. I get into the deeper meaning of movies. Thank you so much for watching, and remember, it's deeper than you think.